am so excited today to have Sonja here. This is an episode that'll be fun because Chelly kind of recommended it, and you guys both kind of farm, right?
Kind of.
I know
I
you
have horses.
Horses.
Yeah.
So I thought, you'd be a good co-host sort of position for this, and yeah, thanks for suggesting it, and thanks for coming here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me, because I was looking up stuff last night and this week and this morning, and I was telling you a second ago, you might be the most accomplished farm life millennial type person that I know. I kept having to add stuff to my notes, like the butcher thing and all this other stuff you do. But just tell me how you kind of arrived at this point in your life, or have you just always kind of been that independent and done everything and just wanted to do stuff yourself? And
Yeah, so I grew up rurally, so I've always kind of just lived not in a town for the most part. So I just got used to, we had, rabbits for 4-H when I was a kid. We had a couple pigs, but we weren't farmers, but it was just kind of a part of the lifestyle. And then when I had my son, when I was 21, my family bought the farm out in Southern Oregon. Okay. We went full on. We had this whole awakening and we're kind of freaking out about what was going on in the world. And so we started a raw dairy farm. So that was like sink or swim. We really just got into it, especially starting something that big from the ground up. It was, messy, dirty work.
That's cows or?
Yeah, so the raw dairy with cows,
okay.
But then we also did pastured beef, pastured pork, pastured chicken. We made the common mistake that a lot of people do, which is we're going to do everything all at once instead of scaling.
Sure.
But it's okay because it taught us so much. So I just naturally picked up skills from the get-go. And I didn't really realize how valuable it all was or unique it was until I started talking about it, especially on Twitter or on podcasts. People are like, oh, wait, butchery and,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I'm talking about tree pruning and, well, of course you want this in your soil. And people are like, what is that?
Yeah. I've said this on the show. I don't even have a plant in my house. So.
No house plants? Wow.
That's who you're talking to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's unusual. But yeah, it's just been this journey. It's definitely there's areas that I want to know more. And I'm trying to expand more in those areas so that I can then teach those skills to people. And that's basically where I'm at right now, is increasing my own knowledge so I can pass it to other people because so many people want to know this stuff.
That's cool. And you said Southern Oregon, which caught my attention because I'm from there.
Okay.
Where was it? Because I'm from Grants Pass is where I grew up.
Okay. I say Southern Oregon, but I don't really know what to call it. It's Douglas County. So they're in Yoncalla.
It's Roseburg.
Yoncalla Rodeo.
Yeah.
Love that rodeo.
Best fireworks show in
Yeah.
the state.
I think that's maybe an hour from where I grew up, but that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of just grew up with all this stuff, and
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, were you gonna say?
Well, I want to ask why raw milk, and why then? What year was that? I'm wondering what got your family deciding we need to do this right now.
Yeah. Okay. 2011, I was pregnant with my son. I was 21, didn't know anything about anything. My friend gave me a copy of Nourishing Traditions, which is a book by Sally Fallon from the Weston A. Price Foundation. Very into traditional foods based on the work of Weston A. Price, who was a dentist that traveled the world and noticed the difference in indigenous diets versus a westernized diet on tribes that were next door to each other. And the ones with the more whole food indigenous diet, they're eating meat and fat. Their jawbones and their teeth were in this amazing condition compared to people with the same genetics next door who were eating a lot of processed grains, and it was very westernized. Mm-hmm. So my friend gave me that book because she was a naturopath, and I was learning about stuff since I was pregnant. And in there is a huge amount of info about raw milk. And one of the things that caught our eye was that if you're lactose intolerant, you can drink raw milk.
Interesting.
Because the lactase, which is what people who are lactose intolerant, the lactase enzyme is lacking in their gut. But it's intact in the raw milk. But in pasteurized milk, it's been destroyed because everything's destroyed when they pasteurize. Mm-hmm. And my mother has been lactose intolerant her whole life. So she was willing to try it, and then she was able to drink the milk and use the milk. So then we started learning more about it, and we're like, oh, this is kind of like a hidden secret. You know, they don't like,
It's
it's
like a
also
cheat code. Yeah.
yeah, it's also
Yeah.
illegal. And
That's the other thing I was going to ask. I know that I don't know about in Oregon, but I know that there's a large crackdown on raw milk. I have a friend who's a nutritional therapist, and our kids grew up together, so I heard about a lot of these kinds of diets. And I mean, we had got raw milk from somebody that she got it from and used it at our house, but it was uncommon then. So did you have problems with the state interfering, or?
No, because we don't give the state authority in the first place.
Nice.
So as soon as you start down some sort of regulatory path, then you're giving the state permission to come in and interfere with what you're doing. So we avoided that in the first place. So there's, there's herd shares and milk shares is a common thing. In Canada, they really cracked down on those and made them illegal, which is not something. I don't think they've done that in the United States yet anywhere, but every state is a little bit different. Like in some states, especially like the Amish country, they have to sell it as pet milk.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know,
yeah.
But here in Oregon,
even in Amish country, that's wild.
Yeah. If you want to sell it like retail or sell it off the farm.
Gotcha.
But here in Oregon, you can have, I think it's up to 2 cows on one tax lot, and sell that milk on site legally, or you could never sell the milk, but you sell a share in the cow.
Okay.
And so then I'm just caring for your cow, and I'm milking your cow for you, and then I'm just delivering you your milk.
Nice.
That's the loophole.
It's such a funny workaround.
And it's really,
I like that.
it's really my favorite. So there was a bill. I'm trying to remember. It was a bill this year. It wasn't 2570. That was presented, and it was trying to legalize raw milk in Oregon for retail sale. And I was adamantly against it. And people were like, "What are you like? Why? Like, this is totally your thing. Don't." And no. Like, think about what happened to the marijuana industry.
Then they'll regulate it, and then they'll glut it and ruin it.
Exactly.
And they have their fingers in it.
Why would you ask for permission for something that's already working? It is the free market right now. No one can't access raw milk. People aren't like, I can't find it anywhere. Like, you can find it, and I can set whatever price I want. I can use whatever sort of cleaning products I want. I don't have to use an iodine teat dip. I can use we use vitamin C for our teat dip. We don't have to vaccinate our cows. We don't have to use antibiotics. If it became something that was regulated by the government, they're going to ruin it. Yeah. And that's what they do. When they want to destroy something, they absorb it.
That's interesting. Yeah, the parallel with the marijuana industry, because a lot of people still complain about that up here. Yeah.
I like what you said. When they want to destroy something, they absorb it. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily connect the dots with that. They think, oh, it's legal now. This is good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's funny too. I was gonna say I can attest to. I just made a TikTok a couple days ago at my work. I was forced to, but our social media person for it. But I don't even know what this means. But they're doing this trend where you say what your, I believe what your Roman Empire was, and then it's like you list something. But anyway, mine was raw goat milk because I have taken to love that stuff, and like I was kind of scared when I first drank it, but it actually just made me feel better. Like, I don't know. And there's all those healthy gut stuff in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
For any kind of raw milk that helps your gut, right?
It's wild. So, Nancy's yogurt is known for being the most probiotic rich yogurts you can get. And they boast something like 10 strains of, 1 million bacteria per strain or something like that. But in raw milk, it literally has 1 million different strains of 1 million different bacteria that we never get in our gut biome anymore.
Wow. So it's just they're totally new to most people's guts.
Or being reintroduced from what we used to have in our diet pre-pasteurization. Wow. And so there's all this really great stuff for your gut, and your gut has more receptors than your brain for all sorts of stuff. So it's raw milk is really just the best. And we've never run into a single person that can't drink it if they're lactose intolerant, and they're always amazed. But if you have a casein intolerance, we can't.
That's a different thing.
That's a protein. You're just allergic to the protein. Okay. I think that they're able to do goat milk, and then there's something about some cows are called A2, some are A1. It's different genetics, and anyways, it gets weird, but that's the only thing we haven't been able to work around.
Interesting, yeah. So tell me about, and I was going to ask you that, did you name yourself after the whole Agora thing? Was that?
Oh.
It's like
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's in my...
Go ahead, yeah.
I had my full name on there, and I was like, oh, man, like, it's just Fintish isn't... It doesn't have a very good ring to it.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's my husband's name. But I'm really into agorism, which I discovered a year or so ago. And I thought I came up with agorism on my own. And then I was talking to my libertarian friend. He's like, oh, like what you're describing is agorism. And I'm like, oh, like this is already a thing. And then I get all the Konkin books and I start learning about it. And I was like, dang, like this is awesome. It's exactly what I've been looking for. And so, yeah, I just attached Agora.
Yeah, I figured that. But yeah, but that's perfect. I was going to transition to, like, can you just lay out what the Agora lifestyle is? Am I even saying that right? I don't even know.
Some people say, I say agorism, Agora. Some people say agorism. So I think Agora is
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
So agorism is a term that was coined by Samuel Edward Konkin III, who was kind of a libertarian anarchist thought leader, which is basically the agora it's a Greek term for the marketplace. So it's based in free trade, but with a vehicle of commerce and how people relate to each other and not having government interference.
Okay.
And so when I talk about connecting more people with farms, not just to go and be a consumer and buy stuff from them, but to go to the farms, learn, get skills so they have something to offer the farm, and then they're getting food and trade. And so that now there's a relationship. That's the agora.
Okay. Yeah, the way you're describing it, I almost think of it as like, it's like an open marketplace, but more interactive, or like more, everyone's kind of learning and trading with each other and that kind of thing. Interesting.
Yeah, I had a conversation with on a podcast recently with a guy who's an anarchist, libertarian, and then me, the agorism, and how those two things kind of fit in together. And I was saying that agorism is the vehicle in which actual anarchism can work, which is, the void of the state telling you what to do. So you're a self-directed individual. That's awesome. But you still have to exist in a society somehow. So how does that society relate to each other? And it would be through something like the agora. Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you said just like a year ago, you kind of fully like committed to that, or got into it? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, committed. It really well describes the way that I view the world and what I'm interested in the most, which is this. And it's very, they call it counter economics. It's very counter revolutionary. It is a way to try and like disarm the state quite a bit, because it's like, we've had these issues with our schools, and everything that happened during COVID for those years. And it's like, oh, we did all these school board meetings. We were begging them, fighting them to change. And I'm like, at the end of that, I was like, why? Like, why am I begging them? Like, why do I want my kids here in the first place? And why is this a system that we're so reliant on? Because so many parents don't have an option. They have to put their kids in there.
Right, yeah.
And then it's the same thing with the grocery store. I literally can't go in this grocery store. They won't let me in, or we're going to do, maskless shopping trips. Why? Like, that they have every right to do that. Why do I want to give them my money? Why am I so reliant on that system? Maybe we should go create other systems that just kind of bypass all of that.
Yeah.
And that is the counter-revolutionary economics.
I love that idea. And you said she had I was looking at your YouTube videos. You had a short, I think, and you were talking about, this is my second year of having a garden, and you're talking about growing your own.
Oh, the Liberty carrots?
Yeah, growing your own food. And, we don't do it because it's cheaper, because it's definitely not cheaper.
Yeah.
It's then going to the grocery store.
$5 tomato.
Right. It's expensive to garden. But, one of the things is what's in it, and you grow it with love, and you have chosen that. But I like what you said most of all is, fuck the government. That's your.
I said it's the single most powerful way to tell the government to go fuck itself.
Yeah. Well, and the way you're describing it too, I was thinking it's just like kind of a rugged individualism to your core of just like,
I guess so.
I don't know. Well, that makes sense why you kind of describe yourself as libertarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool though. And also, I thought that was interesting that you brought that up of like, because like I was just saying, I don't have any plants in my house. I don't have plants at all, but I hear that a lot from like left-leaning people in Portland of like that it is cheaper to kind of do all this natural stuff. But
I don't see how unless they have connections. I don't.
That's what I'm always saying. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no, it's expensive.
As far as like
to do it right.
Yeah, as far as growing food, like if you're buying tomatoes from the store, these are mass produced.
Yes.
Right.
And so yeah, you're getting it, and it also they probably have government subsidies and all sorts of stuff. Meat actually probably is quite a bit cheaper to raise on your own, because instead of having $25 steak, it's all every pound is the same price basically.
And I always heard, maybe this is wrong, but that logistically it's harder with stuff like that because it's so heavy to ship and it's coming from the East Coast or sometimes like Australia or who knows.
Yeah.
I don't know where this meat comes from sometimes, but yeah, that makes sense too. Of like if it's just coming from somewhere in Oregon, it's close by,
mass produced.
Yeah.
I like that I can choose what I want to grow. I like the heirloom seeds, and I grew up with a grandmother that had over an acre garden in river bottom dirt and it just like, she was magic. She also had an orchard and wild strawberries. So I grew up planting with her, watering every day, like there was a lot of, I just grew up, that was a natural thing to do. I never even thought about the cost of it. Is like, this is just what we do.
Yeah.
This is how and she canned. So
yeah,
I think
it gives you like a fierce independence.
Yes.
And it makes people feel you have that food security.
Yeah.
Like you still you want to go to the store for stuff, but
You just don't want to be 100% dependent on
to know that
Safeway or
you don't
whatever, yeah.
have to, or you're like, wow, I just put away all this food. Like it just feels really good. It's empowering for people.
Yeah. And so you're totally off grid, right? You're like
No, not totally. I'm in an RV.
Okay.
Which is awesome. But no, I have power. And
okay. But I guess
water.
maybe that's kind of what I was asking. You're mobile in the RV at all, or I guess you kind of maybe stay at a place and then move on, or
Yeah, we've got a spot right now. We've been there for a bit, on our friend's farm. But if we needed to, we could pick up and go somewhere else. The idea is to get land.
Okay.
In the next year or so, and it's nice because if we buy something pretty raw or with ideally like a very dilapidated house that we can just knock over, we can just stick the RV on there and then build from there. So that is really nice.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
That's something to look forward to. And this is like, I don't know, this is a dumb tie-in, but for what I do at work a lot, and I don't think you'd be interested in this, but there's USDA loans, and like nobody takes those, from what I hear. But
yeah, I would love to take a USDA.
a lot of-
I'd be willing to do it actually.
Really?
But
Yeah.
my credit is just
Not
you have to
good,
have I think over 620. You have to have a nice credit score.
Yeah.
Or maybe 650. I've looked at those and kind of weighed the pros and
Interesting.
cons
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it, and they're definitely underused. I would be nervous about what the USDA's role is.
That's
and
why
what
I
you
said, like,
do.
I don't know if you'd want to do that yet, but
But I don't. I
Yeah.
think when I looked into it, I was like, oh, okay. It's just, they're trying to, I think, like cut down on suburban sprawl.
yeah.
So it doesn't seem unreasonable, but
That's cool though. Yeah, that you're getting some land eventually. And,
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Yeah. So let me get into this like millennial thing. I basically ask the same thing I asked the goat farmer, of like, what are some of the? Do you see people like try to do what you're doing, that are millennials, and then they kind of get scared and back out, or because I know you're trying to help people do that. Right?
yeah. I do small farm consultation. I see far more success than I do failure. The biggest issue that people get into is they get into farming, they get into a ton of debt, they go too big too fast. They go and they get every like free animal they can find on Craigslist.
Oh,
Like you were saying earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're gonna get the geese and the ducks and the pigs and the chickens. And it's, Joel Salatin, who's just a farming guru with Polyface Farms. He, in his books, he says that you need to spend 2 years on your new property before doing anything permanent, like
Wow.
fencing.
Yeah.
Don't put in your permanent fences. Use electric
Fencing. Oh my gosh.
fencing.
Yes.
You know, because you need to understand the rhythm of your land, how the way water moves across your land,
Yeah.
what animals actually, what animals your land will actually support.
So
and-
and that takes like you're saying a year or two just to kind of get
Yeah.
understand that rhythm and
Right, which is a permaculture principle, which is just understanding where you're at. And then also the biggest thing for me is every animal needs to have a job.
okay.
So pigs, you know, they're great at clearing forests. So you can go then and clear the forest ground and lessen your fire danger. There's lots of stuff for them to eat. So pigs should go in the forest and you should put them to work. They shouldn't be out in an open field. People are always like, but I bought a breed that it's not supposed to dig. You know, it doesn't root. It's a non-rooting pig. And I'm like, those don't exist.
I was just like, that's
Look
all
at their
pigs
noses.
do.
It's a
with
shovel.
Yes.
And they're like, stop it. Like, you pig, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I'm like, well, you put your pigs on a lawn. They're like, well, don't
Yeah.
they just eat the grass like a cow? No.
No, they dig.
Sorry, guys. Like, and same thing with like chickens. You know, people get chickens and they put them in one small area and they expect everything to be fine. And next thing they know, they have parasites and their chickens are covered in mites and there's, you know, pathogenic whatever
That's a good
bacteria buildup.
That's an interesting thing because I know a lot of people who have like city chickens here.
Yeah.
Is that would you
That's typically fine because there's just
They kind of
usually
free
have a
range.
couple.
Okay.
Like when they have too many,
It's like
then it's gonna
like
get
a
yucky.
huge
you know,
amount, yeah.
and yeah, it's not ideal, but I totally support anyone in the city getting any food independence
Urban farming,
whatsoever.
yeah.
Like do what you can, you know. And unfortunately, you can't have a pig in the city, but I would love to see that. That'd be so
I'm
cool.
like, you can't. I
There's
had
a reason why there's laws against like cloven-hooved animals in the city.
I had a friend who, I will not name the city, but she's gifted with cows. I mean, gifted. And she had a cow in her backyard for like 3 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
she finally moved out to property and had her cows out there. But I just
Aw,
thought that
man.
was the coolest thing ever.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's
cool,
super
yeah.
cool.
Well, yeah, that's so every animal should have like a utility beyond just eventually killing it and eating the meat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And chickens, you know, you typically they need to coexist with another animal. So they're supposed to follow cows. So when you have cows in the pasture, they have their cow patties.
It's like a pairing. You could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in nature, you see this. Like with
Yeah.
water buffalo, there's always all these, I don't know what they are, egrets, or they're all over the water buffalo. They follow them. So the cows drop these huge patties. And then the flies come and lay their larvae in there. And those larvae will hatch. And then next thing you know, they're all over that's a symbiotic relationship between the two.
Yeah.
But if you bring in chickens, they go through and they completely scratch up
Wow.
and they eat all the larvae, so they cut down on your fly issue. But they also spread the patty out into this really nice fine manure.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it helps the
chickens-
land and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you're also building up carbon, you know, really neatly over the land. And then, so yeah, and you can pair up chickens with pigs too. They do basically the same thing, you know, as long as your pigs don't snack on the chickens. Chickens are pretty fast though.
And so right now you have like a lot of variety of animals, or
Yeah, the farm that I'm at right now, it's a little hobby farm. They're kind of trying to go more like the agritourism direction, which is
Okay.
fun. I really recommend that for anyone making farming their career or their lifestyle. There's so many different avenues you can go in.
and by that you mean it's like you're farming, but you also have a way for people to come in and buy or just visit, or
Right, come by, interact with the property, camp, like anything you can do to create complementary enterprises for people to create income. Don't just make it, I'm going to produce food, because it's a slog. And the market fluctuates, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have a disaster on your farm. Like
It's
so you
classic like diversification.
multiple streams of income for sure. And there's so many ways you can go on a farm, so it's kind of a loss to not exercise all of those. So yeah, it's a little hobby farm. We have geese and ducks and goats and pigs, chickens.
How many acres?
This is just 20 acres.
Okay. Oh, that's a good sized piece of property, I think.
Yeah. Majority of the animals are on the top 7,
Okay.
and then the rest is forest.
Nice.
So
You made me think of I shot a like 20-minute Western at this place called Rossi Farms. I don't know if you know that, but they're like, they are right by the Portland airport.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they still have animals there. I think they have goats and like some corn or something, but mostly now it's like a wedding venue because they have like a fake Western town.
I shot a wedding there just last summer.
Yeah, and I've seen wedding photos all the time
Yeah.
from there, and it's a beautiful place, but it's just interesting that my guess is, I don't know, 100 years ago it was like an actual,
It was a fruit farm when I first moved to Portland, and you could go buy stuff that I was shocked when I saw it. I'm like, oh, there's nothing left.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
There's vines.
There's not much, left as far as that.
Are they the ones that do like the huge, like pumpkin festival? Like they have like a weekend of like
do a big
crazy
fall
stuff.
thing, I'm sure. Yeah.
There's a
think
farm
it
we
is,
went to last year that it just blew my mind. Like these huge slides they built out of metal tubes.
Okay.
And the whole thing, and there's kids going down. The whole thing was so unsafe. And I love
I love it.
I was like, these people are wild.
But
Like
they're just having fun. And,
they're having so much fun, and like they just have like all this like stuff they pulled out from farming, and then they just turned it into like rides and slides.
That's
and
awesome.
a bunch of cool stuff.
That place was really funny though, because I was there for like 3 days, like long shooting days, and because it's next to the airport, it would literally look like a Western, like from like Arizona, like a town from Arizona or something, and then a huge 747 would fly by every 10 minutes from the airport.
No.
So it was just I've always thought of that place because I'm like, it's just such a weird spot for a farm, but at one point it was way more, of like a useful spot. But now it's literally just like there's like trucks going by and planes and stuff.
Wow.
But,
yeah, it's crazy how everything kind of grows up around things that have been there.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before I move on to this other stuff about like millennial farming or anything? I'm curious, like what you do too, because I know you got horses.
Well, so mine's more frivolous. I just moved I have like 3 acres.
Okay.
And my goal was to get out of town, out of the city. I mean, I left Portland and then I left my hometown. I wanted to be out in the country in 3 acres. My goal was to not have a house payment and have a nice, when I say nice house, I mean like, a good structure.
Yeah.
And I found a used manufactured home. This is in 2019 in a piece of property. And I was able to sell the house and get everything together and have a paid for piece of property. And I wanted to put fruit trees and a garden and have rabbits and chickens.
Nice.
And then a place for my horses. My daughter's a rodeo queen.
Yeah,
so
you do rodeo stuff.
Yeah, I do rodeo photography and I ride, so just trail riding. Horses can go a lot of places that people can't get to, so
yeah,
I enjoy that part of it. And it would be nice to have a pair of cows every year. But so that was my plan. So that happened in 2019, which was perfect timing. Mm-hmm. But like you said, and I figured this out really quick, you have to live on the land for a couple of years before you know what you can do. And I figured out, oh gosh, my land floods. So it floods in the far corner when there's heavy rain. And in Oregon, that's normal. So I had to figure out where I was going to put everything again. And I'm in the middle of redoing all my fencing, better fencing for horses and hopefully for a cow or two. And then I'm compartmentalizing the fencing because it's a small piece of property. So I want to be able to put things in a way that I can manage the land so I'm not damaging the land.
Okay. Yeah.
Horses don't have to be out all the time. So I got to put a French drain in and I've re-examined where I'm putting all my garden beds, so I have to change that and where I'm going to put my fruit trees. So that's kind of where I'm at and why I'm interested in what Sonja does. I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but anything to get the fuck the government, if I can get my meat and my food for myself and to trade and barter, anything to lessen the government being in my life.
Right.
I'm wanting to do it.
Or your dependency on them for anything. Because that's another agorism thing, is starve the government. That's the most revolutionary thing you can do. If you really want to fight them, starve them.
I love
starve
that.
them of your money. Starve the economy.
My child was also homeschooled too. So
Awesome.
now,
Yeah.
after she was charter school, and then after
Okay.
the pandemic, like, I was already planning on getting out of town, but the pandemic just broke my brain.
See, I moved to Portland in 2019.
Oh,
I didn't really,
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
so
But you were here in the city for a little while.
Yeah. We moved last March, not this March, March before,
Okay.
out of the city. So we were just there for a couple of years, but it was, I mean,
you kind of got some of the bad.
that's the worst
I know.
possible
Well,
time to live there.
I grew up in Corvallis. Like,
Okay.
Portland's never been too far away, and we come up here for deliveries for the farm. So I always liked visiting the city, and it's weird and funky, and I love that. And so my husband, we were at my family's 160-acre farm, and we wanted to we had just gotten married. I was pregnant with our third, and we just wanted to change things up. And he was working on his career in carpentry. So I moved up to the city, and we're like, it'll just be kind of weird for a couple of years. Like, this is fine, get the kids some culture. and then COVID hit, and my daughter was born in March
Wow. 2020.
2020.
Wow. That's like right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do home birth, so she's
Oh,
my
that's
third
good.
home birth in an apartment in Portland, which is hilarious
Wow,
to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody. I had all these things I was planning on doing to,
Yeah. Get out.
become a part of
yeah.
a city and,
Mm-hmm.
experience that. And that all went out the window. And I was very isolated and very alone and just kind of confused. Like the first couple weeks remember, like 2 weeks to,
Yeah.
2 weeks to slow the spread.
And I was like, I remember my husband came home and he was like, did you hear about this new virus coming? And I was like, yeah, they do that every year. It's like swine flu,
Yes.
avian flu,
Oh, the flu's really bad this year.
And he's like, no, I think this might be a little bit different. Like, people are really freaking out about it. I'm like, okay, and we do the 2 weeks, and I'm like, hey, this is weird. Like, this is something different.
Whatever. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're done now, right? Like, I read a bunch of studies being like, oh, it doesn't live on surfaces for weeks
Right.
anymore. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, you guys, it's safe. Let's go. Let's go to the playgrounds. Like, let's go back to life. And I was like, oh, no, these people are buckling down more. Like, where am I?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am surrounded by,
mentally ill people.
yeah.
Well, literally. Yeah.
But like desperate for something to be wrong, like, or like for the government to like,
or wanting that kind of shutdown to perpetuate and just like, yeah, we need to just
Govern me harder, daddy.
yeah, they really, and that's when I was like, ooh,
this
is problematic. And then we moved to Northeast Portland,
okay.
from where we were in Southeast, and moved into a house. And I just said this on another podcast. I didn't see my neighbors' faces for 4 months.
Wow.
I didn't know what they looked like.
Yeah.
I knew their names, but they would literally get out of their car with the mask on, get their groceries, put them in the house, come back, get more,
Wow.
close the door, talk to me with the mask on, and then like Thanksgiving rolls around. I'm like inviting as many people over as possible, and we're not supposed to have people over. And
Did anybody turn you in?
No, they didn't. But then because I was stuck in a situation in Portland, which is, I've never been an activist. I've never done anything politically. Like I've barely been registered as anything. I think at that time I was registered libertarian, but I didn't even know what that meant. I just didn't like anything else. But because I was put in such an intense environment, I freaked out and started throwing medical freedom protests. Like my first one was in Oregon City on May Day in 2021, I think.
Sounds
And
great.
all these people showed up. And then I just kept on doing it. And then I did a tour around the state of throwing medical freedom protests. So that was like my thing for a while. But it got really intense because Antifa hated my protests because we were protesting the government.
Which, for an
Yes.
anarchist position.
They're
is
not
kind of
anarchists,
strange.
though.
They're not anarchists.
And that's why
right.
it sucks. Like I use
Yeah.
the term anarchist now because I understand what it means, and I really resonate with a lot of it. But then people are like, "Oh, anarchist." Ooh.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you've never actually met one. Those people are not anarchists. They're statists. They're
Yeah.
commies.
They're communists.
And as all of us probably know, I hope most people know this, but like the whole presentation of what that group is designed to be like fake. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's not anti-fascists. They're not anarchists. It's just like a, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah. No, I do.
I don't know what they are, and they were so confused.
But it's designed to appeal to people, you know. And
sure, and it, you know, I'm sure. I always got the impression that they're having a great time. Like they were saying, like, oh, there's an emergency. Everyone get together and like let's go address this emergency together. And it's like, wow, you guys are having like, you got all your like gear on and you're like, all black. Like that looks really
They're
fun.
part of a club.
You guys probably have cool parties. Like I don't know, but they were so obnoxious, and I got to know them pretty well. I'd be like, hey, like. They'd be like,
you can
hey,
recognize
Sonja.
them under the masks and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you gonna be cool today? And they're like, I don't know. Like, okay, you know. But I actually did have. There was a couple, I think probably actually anarchist Antifa folk on Twitter shout out my medical freedom protests and be like, hey, you guys, stop going to these protests and protesting them. Like we're anarchists. If they want to go gather outside of a politician's house, why are we standing outside protecting the politician's house? Like, hello. And that is, so there was all this infighting and I was like, haha, you know.
That's awesome.
But that's what I wanted. I was like, after a while, a lot of them started dropping off and stopped showing up because we weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
I remember going to one. Did you have one down on the waterfront?
The big one with the big tree?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't just me. That was a coalition between Oregonians for Medical Freedom, Children's Health Defense, and Free Oregon.
Okay.
And I was with Free Oregon for a while.
I got confronted by a couple of them down there. I went to cover that. And
that was when they were destroying that art piece.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I do remember that.
Yep, they did. And it's crazy because this downtown, you know, he had dyed colored hair. It's like blue and pink. He was the like owner of that art piece. He ran down there and was freaking out on them. And it was such an interesting dichotomy happening.
Yeah, I've never seen that, like with the elk statue and all that stuff of like obviously the artist is probably dead of that, but like the actual designer or artist like coming down there like stop, like
really upset, you know. And they didn't care, like they, you know, it made a lot of noise and they were trying to be disruptive, but because of the way that we did things, I realized what the actual threat to my event was, and it was people from my event getting antagonized by those guys
and interacting with them
and coming and interacting with them because they're not going to do anything. Like they're just going to nag at you until you do something crazy. And now they're legitimized in their response and it's going to ruin my event. So I actually made a lot of enemies on my side because I would get in between the two and I would shove people on my side back. I'm not going to touch Antifa because that's what they want.
Yeah.
That's one of their main tactics.
And no one understood this. And I was like, you guys are making me be the bad guy, but like, you don't understand. Like my event is way more important than your personal beef with these idiots.
They just film it and then put it, oh, look at these crazy right-wingers that are violent.
And I had great success at my events because of things like that. But anyways, that's a whole tangent about Portland.
Yeah.
But moving out of Portland was a huge relief. I didn't realize how stressful it was until I got out.
I bet.
And I was like, oh man, that sucked.
Because I talk about it a lot on this show of like, you know, I'm pretty used to it. I think that anxiety just becomes like a foundation in people's life. And so they don't really know until you get out. I always love just getting out of the city to where I can like see beyond like a mile or two and it's just open. And even that I feel like is healthy to just, I'm like, like it's like a breath of fresh air, but you know.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, finally getting to move out, and that was a couple years ago or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna say too, I want this to happen soon. My friend Tashoni, who's a Navajo, where I grew up in Grants Pass, is gonna come up here, and he like bought like, I think it was like 100 pounds of beef from a cattle farm down there, and he's gonna have me taste it on the show, which I've been waiting for.
Nice.
So let's make that happen anyway. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
Or if you have
what
beef,
a treat.
if anyone has it, I'll do it. But
I'll bring some rabbit.
That'd be good.
You raise rabbits too?
No, we don't have any rabbits yet. And
if you want breeding stock, I got rabbits.
Yes,
I was just saying yesterday.
That.
The only time I've had it is there's this place near where I work in Vancouver where I had Japanese fried rabbit, and that was pretty good. I thought it was like chicken, a little more gamey, but it was good though.
I'm a fan of the pigs.
Oh,
that's like,
yeah.
I can't be friends with them. Like, I could not raise pigs.
I love,
because I like to eat them, and that would be too much for me. Cows, I don't have the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. The rabbits that is hard for people to get past.
Yeah.
Is the cute factor.
Yes, it's cute.
I'm curious what you think. Like, a lot of people have pet pigs, right? Or is that a thing?
Yeah, there was like it was a really big deal. I think
The
like
mini ones, or
7-8 years ago, were like teacup pigs.
Yeah.
Miniature
There's
pigs.
no such thing.
Yeah.
No such thing as a miniature pig.
No, it's lies. It was actually a bunch of like
yeah.
Okay.
like
Yeah.
scams. Like I knew
They
a guy that was
grow
selling.
huge.
Yeah.
So they had like just basically promoted like when they were young, and then they're like, yeah, you can get them at this
They
size.
they just get a little bit bigger. And I remember I'd gone to a feed,
like a pig, like size of a
I'd
small
gone
dog.
to a feed store, and I was a tiny little pig, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a teacup pig. And I'm like, I'm holding the pig, and I'm like, honestly, this feels like about a 12-week-old pig. Okay. And I'm thinking there is no, I go home and look it up. Yeah, no such thing. But people totally bought in, and the next thing they know, they've got this massive pig.
Yeah.
That is what. Yeah, I'm learning this. For
Like
the first
potbelly
time.
pigs, potbelly pigs.
They're kinda
pretty
small.
They're like, you can
Okay.
get one that's like this and like
just a
yay
smaller
big,
breed.
but it's still like 100
still-
pounds. Like
Yeah.
they
It's a
think
good sized dog.
They think it's gonna stay like the size of a chihuahua. Like
Right.
so cute, no.
Yeah,
And it's still gonna eat all your stuff.
pounds, like 100-pound animal, if anything, is pretty.
It's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like apartment pig. Like what?
Right.
Pigs can be very destructive too.
So destructive.
That's what I've heard. Like, is it more like if you did have a big dog that was like chewing on everything? Is it worse than that? Or is it
Yes.
Pigs,
they'll just eat anything.
if anybody's ever looked in a pig's mouth, now I am not a pig expert like you, but I raised a couple of pigs for 4-H, and I literally grew up. My best friends that lived behind us had a 300 head of hog. It was a
Wow,
big farm.
okay, yeah.
So I grew up around pigs, and their mouths they could eat you. Like, I mean,
they
we,
do. They do
yeah,
eat
it's
you.
scary.
Like, yeah, I've heard that.
I
in
learned
movies and stuff where
to
they'll feed people
respect.
to fit
Oh
pig.
yeah.
Yeah.
And especially the sows with their babies.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd go into the sow barn, and they'd have these little beds below that the little ones could come out with a heat lamp.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get too close to the bigger pen, and they'd jump right up there and like it.
Protect that
You
area.
yes,
Yeah.
you learned like you could lose a hand.
We've
So-
had to take all sorts of measures when castrating piglets.
Oh.
Because
They scream.
The piglets scream, and I hate it. Like
Yeah.
It's sad.
I really hate it. It's brief. You get them when they're small. You make like a little cut. It's not that bad. They're very dramatic about it, but and then they recover immediately.
Yeah.
But you have to take all these measures to not let mom get you. Because I have seen like a 500-pound sow leap over hog panels like this tall.
Wow.
Like multiple, because she was all the way on the
Yeah.
other end of the barn. We thought
trying
we
to-
were fine, and we're like, oh, she's coming. She's 3 away.
Oh no.
She's 2 away. She's it's pretty amazing.
It'd be terrifying. Yeah.
They're
Yes,
terrifying.
it-
I don't
yes.
mess. Yeah, I don't. I haven't been injured by one, but I saw a sow the other day try and take someone out, and the sows can grow tusks too.
Yes. And they're fast.
Yeah, and you don't underestimate a boar. I mean,
And they're
those things
smart.
Those things are like this tall
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like
They're
800 pounds.
I don't know why you made me. The castration thing made me think of. It was one of my favorite segments ever on one of my favorite podcasts, King of the Sting. It's a comedy podcast, but this guy called in from a farm and told the show and the audience how to inseminate a cow.
Oh wow.
And he didn't actually do it, but he just, you take this little vial and you like put your arm up there, and it taught me a lot about like kind of like that, the castration thing of like, this is kind of crazy. It's weird, but you have to do this stuff. And like,
Yeah. I mean, I try and avoid as much interference as possible in the way that animals do things.
yeah.
So like we don't artificially inseminate our cows, which I just got in a fight with a vegan online recently about this. And
Really?
he was like, you do this and you forcibly you rape these cows. And I was like,
my
if that's what you call like what the bull is doing
Right.
out there, like we don't do that. He was like, well, everyone does that. Like, no, we don't do that. Like, yeah, what you're saying, it's pretty brutal. Like, I'm not into that. I don't want to interfere too much. But yeah, we have a bull that does that, and we try and not,
That makes sense.
like, unless there's an emergency, we're not going to pull a calf or anything. And Sometimes we have to go in and pull piglets out if one's turned the wrong way. So that's when you get to really experience the healthy relationship that humans can have with these animals that we've been having a relationship with for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like vegans and stuff just want to stay out of it and says, let them go do what they want, you know? And it's like these animals, like, sure, but it's a couple thousand years too late.
Yeah.
Like these animals, some of them like cannot exist without us. So you want them
They
to all go
are
die out? Like,
domesticated.
yeah,
at
the
this
cows,
point.
like it's, you know, it's the first animal mentioned in the Bible is a cow.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you can't leave the young heifers out in the field with the bull. He's going to breed them too early. They're going to have an issue with calving. They're going to die. Their body's never going to get that big and strong. They got bred too soon. So as a shepherd of the flock, I have a responsibility to go in there and heal them when they're injured, you know, harvest them the most humane way that I possibly can, give them the best life that I possibly can. And that's my relationship with the animals. That's what I have to offer.
Makes sense.
And in exchange, they offer me food. And I'm going to not tear them apart while they're alive in the field like other wild animals do.
Yeah, you're going to kind of intervene whenever it's helpful to them or for their survival or whatever, you know.
Yeah. And not let them suffer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a cougar will rip
I was
off
just
the
gonna
back
say,
end of a
cougar.
cow,
Oh.
eat its liver, and leave.
Yeah, or other, do you have like coyotes or, I don't know, there's all sorts of animals.
Yeah, there's coyotes. They'll take the chickens and stuff.
Little animals. And
Yeah.
You just made me think before I move on to Burning Man stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to ask, like, what do you say? Do people come at you? Because I hear this all the time of, like, what am I thinking of? Like, the amount of, like, grass and stuff for cattle. And, like, this is just, like, a progressive thing, I think. But, like, people that complain about the amount of land and resources.
Farming is ruining the climate.
It's like an anti-farming kind of mentality that
Yeah, it's so dumb.
ruins the climate. Yeah.
So it's based on like correct information, but in like a different premise. So mass animal production, like CAFOs, like concentrated animal feeding operations.
Yeah, like what am I saying? Big ag, or like factory meats or that.
Yeah, it's truly terrible for the environment and terrible for the animals, inhumane and really bad for us.
Yeah.
So if you focus on just that and that's your only choice, like become a vegan. Like this is awful. You know, the clear cutting of forests and the desertification that happens from growing mass amounts of soybeans to feed these factory farmed pigs is totally unsustainable. It requires a massive amount of water. I'm not a climate change person at all, but I do understand the impact that humans have on the environment and the responsibility we have. So what they're talking about is true. That's all totally, they're totally right. But then they're not looking that on the other hand, there's a way to do what we're doing that actually does improve the environment.
Yeah.
The amount of carbon that cows sequester on land through building the topsoil from grazing, not eating grain, because they shouldn't. And that's also why E. coli is an issue in beef, is because these cows are being fed grain, which is not supposed to be in their gut.
Yeah.
And it grows E. coli, which never happened before they started feeding them grain on feedlots. So grass-fed beef, we eat it raw all the time.
I was going to ask, that's the difference between grass-fed and grain-fed.
Yeah. And the animals, the cows are keeping the forest clear. The pigs are keeping the forest clear. They're mitigating the danger of wildfire because you're able to get in there and clear out the brush.
Mm-hmm.
And so, animals out on the land is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Yes, land. We've seen what happened when land is left completely alone.
It's so dumb.
It creates massive fire danger, and
It's the tinderbox.
even large scale ranches and farms are good. I'm not talking about the factory farming, but because they take care, they have thousands of acres and they take care of those. They take care of the land and they care about the land and what happens there.
Yeah, and the range grazing and all of that.
Makes a huge difference.
When you made me think of, like, is that maybe like I don't want to say stale, but maybe like an older talking point? Because I feel like there's a lot more small farms or independent farms now compared to like Foster or like these big, huge companies. But I don't know, maybe obviously there's still huge players in like factory farming, but
Yeah. I feel like it's becoming more popular to source your own food to for multiple reasons. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's made much of a difference. I am seeing a lot of recovered vegans, a lot
Okay.
more. Like people I had, like friends I had that were vegans for years, are now starting to like drink milk and eat meat, but like ethically raised meat. So maybe they need to go to this extreme because what is going on is extreme. So you know, that's what those like documentaries and stuff.
It is, yeah.
They play on your emotions, and as a compassionate human being, the right response to that is to be like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. So they go to this extreme, but I think that's what the powers that be kind of want. They want to keep you in that like emotionally intense place where actually there's a very reasonable middle ground that's actually way better for you and not the government.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
The kind of farming. I mean, so we got pigs for 4-H from the people behind us that had the hog farm.
yeah.
But they had hogs, geese, chicken, ducks, cows, dairy cows. And I mean, we bought meat from them. We had milk delivered. We got milk from their cows. So I grew up with, you know, it's local sourcing and it was plentiful and it was good.
That's awesome.
I felt like it
What
was
a
healthy.
great like beginning to have.
Yeah, and I lived out in the country, so like we were on like an acre. They had like 15 acres, and they'd been doing this kind of farming for years. But there were many farms like that, and I feel like, and this was in the 70s, so I'm aging myself here, but dating myself. But I think that we're seeing kind of a return to that. People moving out in the country. I mean, what you're doing is a lot more than that, but we're seeing people raise a couple of cows and raising pigs or getting chickens and having their eggs, things like that. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's becoming normalized, or like making your own kombucha, making your own yogurt, baking bread, like you know, just little things that you can do. One thing I was going to say in response to what you asked a little bit ago about like new millennials, new farmers that happen to be millennials or whatnot. One thing I tell people is that if you're going to be totally self-sufficient, that's your goal. One, it's kind of impossible. So don't think that you're going to buy, especially if you buy like a lot of land, which becomes really difficult to maintain by yourself. It's kind of impossible. People actually never really did this. They were never completely
alone,
self-sufficient, you know, with their small family. There's a reason why people had big families, you know, to be able to manage everything. You should be prepared to specialize in just a couple things, have your centerpiece and whatever's complementary to that, and then make something that's really, really good, that you're really good at, and then trade and make those relationships with other people. Or if you want to have it all in-house, then you need to have a community there. You need to have people coming there and helping and working and maybe living. But it's not like I'm going to go out and buy, you know, 20 acres in the middle of nowhere with my family and we're going to produce everything ourselves. You'll
die.
You might die. I mean, I know people that kick butt, you know, and they work so hard and they way better work ethic than even me. And so they would probably argue with me on that a little bit, but
one disaster though. One disaster. And, you know, it's just that's a lot. And people never did that.
It's a good point though, yeah, because I think there's maybe a myth or whatever of people my age thinking that. I've even thought that a lot of my, you know, my adult life of like, yeah, because then you don't have to depend on anybody. But it makes sense what you're saying, because even back in the day, you need some network of people.
You need interdependence. You know that show Alone?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that show. It's great for the first half of the show.
Then everything falls apart.
And then it becomes, I need to get a fish.
Right.
I got to get a fish today. I just need to get another fish, because you know, you need a couple additional people so that someone can stay back and they can work on the shelter. Someone else can collect firewood. Someone else can be building something, and then someone else is fishing. Yeah. There's an interdependence that most of us don't even know our neighbors in a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. That is the core dangerous thing that you 100%. Can do, which is create this network, this interdependence between people, especially when you're creating food.
Yeah, and it seems like, obviously, like in a farming environment too, it's like you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot, or like if you're just cutting yourself off from your neighbors and like,
Well, even in
they could be so much help to you. And I don't know.
in case of a fire, like where I was moved to, it was 2020, so it was fall of 2020 when we had the 2 fires, and I was really close to the one down south, and we were in a level 3 evacuation zone for a little bit, and I didn't even have electricity in my house yet, much less, how was it gonna water anything down. And my neighbors had just moved in, and they were from California, and I was a little bit butthurt about that. And then I found out that he was a retired firefighter.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I am not leaving this land no matter what. I will make sure that this does not burn down. And I'm like,
wow.
It's a good person to have.
Don't
Yes.
judge a book by its cover.
You're right.
Or what's origin state.
Yeah. Well, they were Trump voters too, so I was like, okay, we're all right, but
okay.
and it's not about Trump, it's more about like, okay, they fit in the community. But that drove home the point to me that I've got to know my neighbors. My neighbor across the way, he has water trucks, and he delivers water. And my neighbors up the hill, belong to the church that I started going to the church that's next door, and that and it was driven home. I think you were part of this discussion, and I wanted to talk about this, and I had just forgotten about it till now. People think, oh, I've got this farm, and I'm let's just say they've done it. I've got meat, I've got vegetables, I've got fruit, I have solar panels, like I am all by myself. And then when shit hits the fan, I am good. I've got guns, I've got ammo. And I'm like, I don't know.
Drop.
Yeah. So I think they were talking about how you can't just depend on yourself. You are going to need, let's just say shit does hit the fan, you're going to need a whole arsenal and all these people that are going to come in and defend, because otherwise other people are just going to come in and take what you have.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I mean, if it's a shit hits the fan scenario, you're not going to have they're not going to leave you alone. You're not going to have one guy show up to your house.
You're
gonna have
never
a whole
going
bunch.
to be safe.
You're never going to be safe. I mean, in general.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time to people too who stockpile guns and ammo. It's like, that's great. You should. Everyone should have guns. Everyone should buy lots of ammo, especially right now since you're about to not be able to buy a 5.56. So buy that.
Yeah, I know. I know you're a big 2A.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about this,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of the things you say about it, it's like even people who are like, I'm doing all these things, they don't really understand necessarily.
Yeah, it's the logistics part. Like, I know all these guys that are great at what they do, and they're stockpiling guns and ammo. They're not thinking about logistics like they are now, because we're talking about it a lot.
Like, starting from the basic thing of you only have 2 hands. Like, you
only have 2 hands.
if you have 40 guns and
yeah,
one person.
There's that.
Yeah.
It's like John Wick. Like, come on. I mean, go train.
I guess you can empty them and grab another one, but whatever.
Right. But where's your food?
Yeah.
Where's your water? Where's your shelter?
All the other stuff.
Where are you going to bug out? Because you'll just starve to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about too, is, getting to a secondary location and it just kind of drove home. Even at my home, it's an illusion about being safe, and the more connections I have in my community,
right.
and the more preparedness I do, and that does involve weapons and ammunition, that involves, seeds and food, but the biggest thing, radios.
Comms.
Yeah, you were talking about radios, but having a community that you have connected to that struck me as probably the most important thing that you could possibly do.
I'm glad, because that was the word I was going to use too. It's like it is kind of like this. I see it as almost like a return to community, because I feel like, and I've been in Portland too long, but I feel like this almost like rejection of community in cities and progressive cities. But I guess a lot of people will probably argue with me, but their idea of community is just agree with me and fuck you, everyone else, and
Yeah, I mean, also everyone treats each other like NPCs, and I think there's a lot of those out there too. But it's like, you see the same cashier every day. Are you going to create a relationship with them, or are they like all the other people that you see every day? Like the need for connection, I feel like, gets muted too, because you're inundated with people all the time.
Yeah.
But to the ammo logistics point, comms. Radios. No one. It's like the least fun part. I mean, radios I think are pretty fun, but they're expensive to get a good one. But like with your neighbors, like all of you should be getting radios.
Yeah.
So that if power goes out or whatever, you can talk to each other, or someone can say, hey, like someone's coming up the road. Like make that network now. You don't want to set it up later. You want to set it up now. It's cheap. It's easy. It can be fun. But it's like the least romantic part. Like people will buy so many guns and not buy a radio.
No way to communicate.
But then also the food. Like if you, that's something that you can offer, you know, to a farm that might feel like a sitting duck. And you're like, hey, you know, I do this and I kind of want to make sure my food's secure. Like maybe we can work something out. Yeah. You know, that's a really big one.
Cool. Well, let me move on to this other stuff. Unless you guys have anything else to say on this thing.
I mean, that could be a many hours.
Yeah,
I know.
Talk about
but I want more people to think about it. That's why I
need to think about it.
Yeah, there's a lot in here. I just wanted to quickly ask about the Burning Man stuff, and like, because I wanted to shout out Alex Stein. He's a great guy, and I saw you were on his show.
Yeah,
and
he's awesome.
Were you talking about that on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you were there for this.
I was there,
and I was like gonna kind of laugh about this, but I don't know. Do people die at that thing this year, or was it?
People die every year.
Okay.
It's a city of like 80. I think 80,000 people is the biggest that it's ever been. So statistically, someone's gonna die in like a 1 week, 2 week period.
Just math, yeah.
And actually, it's a really good statistic as far as like cities go for the amount of deaths that happen. Yeah. And this year, someone died. He was like a 40-year-old guy. He had like a heart issue.
Okay.
It wasn't
a disaster related.
No, and also, you know what? There was no overdoses, deaths, which I was really nervous about that this year. But there is I mean, there's so much to talk about with Burning Man, but there is a drug culture. But then there's also all these other cultures. So a lot of time that's all that's presented. It's like,
and
party,
I know
drugs,
I know even like comedian, like I saw Harlan Williams this year at Helium. He's a favorite comedian of mine, but he went this year and he's like sober and like
there's sober camps. You can go to AA the whole time you're there.
He was talking about when he went. Yeah, it's just interesting that like you're saying, like it's not all just drug culture.
No, and if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. That's fine. But because there's the drug culture, people are very wise about their drugs, and so they always are testing.
Right.
You know, so
especially nowadays.
I was really nervous about fentanyl out there, and like if people were going to be getting hurt, but I think it was fine.
But it's because I just meant mainly like, was that this last year? I heard about like the muds.
Yeah,
and all that
yeah.
stuff.
The storms.
Yeah.
We called it a Burning Man 2023 wet ass playa. You know.
So they had basically like a flash flood or something.
Yeah, it rained. Like,
which it never does there.
Yeah, I feel like I really disappointed Alex when I went on his show because he wanted to hear like Ebola and FEMA. Like his show's out of control. Yeah, and I didn't really think about it. Like he had put out a post online being like, "Hey, you know what, at Burning Man?" And I had just made a Twitter post that went off about it. And so I just wrote him and was like, "I'm here." And they contacted me, and I haven't really watched his show. I watched his like videos of him running around harassing
city council and stuff.
And AOC and stuff. Like I love that.
His show is an interesting format.
His show is out of control, and so I started watching some of it, and I was like, oh no, like what? And so I felt kind of bad because I think I was a little disappointing.
You're a little low key
because I was like, yeah, there's no Ebola, there's no FEMA, it was fine, and he's like, all right. But he was really sweet to me, so I was really happy about that. But yes, it rained. It typically, you'll get rain during pre-build, so people go out there for months too. People don't realize this. Like, it's not a 3-day festival.
Oh, there's no way they could build those things.
They build, my husband typically goes out there for build, and so he's out there for over a week before the event even starts, and he helps build things. And sometimes he won't even stay for an event. He'll just go there and build stuff with his friends and then leave.
Take off, yeah.
Yeah, and which is there's a whole community culture there that's really fun. So sometimes it'll rain a little bit during pre-build. It's not a big deal. The roads have time to dry. This was a lot of rain, and people were not prepared, and I don't really know what happened with that. But the issue is that the playa it's not dust, it's not dirt, it's not sand, it's playa. So it's this very fine alkaline dust. Gotcha. It's like a porcelain dust. And when it gets wet, it turns into this really sticky
Oh, interesting.
substance. And then when it dries, it turns into like
Hard.
concrete.
Okay.
So
It's
in
almost
the
like a
middle,
clay or something, or
it's
yeah.
like a clay, but it's so fine, and it just coats your whole
Gotcha.
body. So it became an issue because you're trying to walk around, you can't. So we came up with all these crazy ways to protect our feet. I ran around barefoot for 2 days because it was still kind of warm out. And in retrospect, that was so stupid. Like, I'm so lucky I didn't get injured. And I don't know what I was thinking, but you couldn't walk in shoes anymore.
Because it would grab your shoes.
Yeah. And this all started on a Friday.
Okay.
The event starts on Monday and it goes till Monday. But people don't usually get out of there till like Wednesday, Thursday, if they're tearing down their camp.
Takes a while.
And then there's people that stay out there for weeks, literally sifting the playa to get everything out. Like it's leave no trace. That's
Okay.
how they
Wow.
get their permits. They pay millions of dollars in permits every year
Wow.
for being able to be there. So they cannot leave
Careful with
anything.
it.
Yeah, and so the rain started on a Friday. You typically do man burn on Saturday night. Sunday night is the temple burn. Exodus, which when everyone leaves, happens on Sunday and Monday, typically. And you're usually trapped in traffic for like 8 hours
I'd
sometimes.
imagine, yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah.
So when people were freaking out on Saturday and I saw the headlines of being like 75,000 people trapped at Burning Man, it's like we don't normally leave yet,
Right.
but the issue, the biggest issue was the city provides you two things. They make roads and they service the porta potties.
And remind me again, what city is this?
Burning Man.
But I mean,
Like the org.
I see that.
Oh, that's like it.
Yeah. The
Okay.
organization itself.
Okay.
The organization that pays for the permit, makes the event happen. All they do is make roads, say where the camps can go,
Gotcha.
and provide porta potties. And so the porta potties weren't getting serviced. However, there's huge camps and small camps have their own bathroom facilities a lot of the time, but they couldn't get serviced either. A lot of these really big camps are not in the spirit of Burning Man anymore, which is supposed to be like radical self-reliance. You bring everything that you need, and you rely also on each other. But people have gotten really soft.
There's
with
some
it.
people that don't adhere to that.
Yeah, they're called plug and plays, and people spend thousands of dollars to go show up to a camp, and you have everything that you need.
It's already.
It's already there.
Yeah.
You have a bike there. You have, heated porta potty toilets. You have all your food catered by a chef. Like,
Wow.
Wow.
which the camp I stay at it's not a plug and play because it does stuff in real world. That's pretty cool. But they do provide you a little geodome to sleep in. There is food. People are supposed to volunteer in the kitchen. And then we do have our own bathrooms. So not to be like plug and plays, but these camps are wild.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden their food's not being shipped in. Their water's not being shipped in.
I see. Yeah.
They're not prepared. They're not storing
So there
stuff.
wasn't even
The
like
fuel,
extra on hand if something
they
delayed.
weren't planning. Like, why would it be delayed?
Right.
The fuel to run the generators that ran the refrigerators.
Oh.
So they had kind of planned for this 7-day thing, and then once you get beyond that, they're like, there's no infrastructure to get.
Or were
the
they
stuff
just
in.
bringing
They
in
plan
stuff
like
every
a
day?
couple days. Some of these camps, these huge sound camps, they have a camp behind it of everyone who is a part of the camp, but they're just blowing through fuel. So they have to have it delivered a lot.
Oh, wow.
And so maybe they just blew through a bunch of fuel on, Friday night, right when the rain started.
Yeah.
Expecting fuel in the morning, and there's no fuel. There's no fuel for your camp,
That's interesting. It is kind of like it's not even really a microcosm because it's like an actual city scale, but it's like like a small city dealing with like any kind of weather like that.
Yeah.
In the same way it would affect, everything, like roads you were saying and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
and it was such a beautiful. It was the best thing that could ever happen to Burning Man because
Okay.
it really grounded everyone in reality, and everyone banded together. Everyone was so positive, and
It was kind of a resetting of.
and being like, oh, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and like actually putting into practice out here. Like, you can go and party and have a good time. That's great, but there's a general idea of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the camp I was at specializes in disaster relief.
Oh, wow.
And so this
Okay.
was like, I'm in the best place I could possibly be. So they were helping like coordinate all these other camps.
Yeah.
You know, they had boards outside where people could come and say what their needs are, or like
Oh.
they were taking in refugees for people
Yeah.
to sleep in our dry areas. That was really cool. They were sending out people to go far into the city because it's huge.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a while to get around, especially slogging through the mud, to go check out the people on the very edges that might not have anything. You know, they're sleeping in a tent that's in a puddle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of people to manage and stuff, or help, you know.
Right. But it's like everyone was responsible for themselves, and then people started to kind of freak out.
Yeah.
You know, that weren't prepared. Like there was a car that caught on fire just like a street down from us because they were trying to leave, and it was like a little Honda Civic. I don't know what they were doing. And they got stuck in the mud, and their turbo blew up because they were revving the car so much. And then they ran away. The people like left all their
Where are they going?
I don't know. I don't know where they ended up, but they ran away. There was a U-Haul that got stuck, and people were mad in the neighborhood because then they blocked the roads.
Right,
so that was not cool to do that. And then you make Burning Man deal with your mess because, you know, you saw like the videos of the cars stuck. Like
I didn't see much of that, but that's why I was asking. Like, I just heard, I got the like clickbait headline.
Sure,
stuff,
I couldn't
and that's why I
believe-
was like, that's why I was saying like, oh, a bunch of people died, and you're like, no, there's not.
Yeah, I
like-
thought a bunch of people died too, because that's all I saw was
no,
clickbait
one guy
headlines.
died. Like,
I knew you were okay because I'd seen your post. But
Yeah.
it sounded like it was absolute utter chaos. Otherwise, no.
I couldn't believe how positive everyone was. Like people were still going out, and then we ended up doing Man Burn on Monday.
Okay.
Monday night.
They pushed it back.
Yeah, because we needed time to dry, and like they need to be able to get the fire trucks. There's a ton of
When you extinguish that thing,
there's a ton of work. There's people that set up perimeters. You know, real firefighters. They're wearing their reflective, shiny gear, and then there's a line of rangers that keep people from running into the fire,
keeping it safe, and stuff.
which has happened.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah,
I feel like I've
saw
heard
that.
about that,
I saw
yeah.
it. I was there.
But that wasn't this year, obviously.
No, that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So yeah, we did the Man Burn, and it was awesome. It was the coolest thing because at that point, a lot of people had gotten out, the ones that were really desperate.
Right.
And because there were so many less people, we were allowed to be a lot closer to the Man Burn. And then it was just this really, there was no sound stages. Everything was shut down. Everyone was tearing all their stuff down. Usually burn night's like a really big
There's all
party.
this other stuff going on.
Yeah, and all the art cars come out, and they make a big circle around the man,
Right.
and they're all blah, like it's
I've seen that aerial like shot of that. It's like,
yeah. And then all the people are in the middle, but because there were so many less people, and the city was empty, everyone was condensed in the middle, and it was this really cool experience. And it was just it felt really cool.
Yeah.
And then we left the next day,
Okay.
and we had no trouble.
So it didn't take weeks to get out, like they were saying.
No, it took 4 hours to get
It's
out.
just a lot of traffic.
Oh,
It's not
'Cause I was
bad.
thinking it's almost like I watch a lot of NFL. It's almost like a big concert or game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, people are like, look at this line of
Yeah.
like how hard, like people can't get out. It's like that's what it looks like every year.
Mhm.
I've been stuck in traffic for 8 hours trying to get into Burning Man.
Yeah.
Like
It's just a lot of people.
not a big deal.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me quickly go through. Tell me, because you talked a little about your time in Portland. Were you always an Oregonian, or did you? kind of
Yeah, I
grow up
mean,
in-
I was born in Sacramento, but we moved when I was 2 to
Okay.
Oregon.
very young. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm an Oregonian.
Nice, okay.
Yes, you
we
are.
all of us are. So yeah. I think right. You were.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fifth generation.
Yeah. So yeah, tell me quickly your favorite thing in Northwest. Could be a person, place, thing, anything. Could be your own farm where you're living right now.
I know,
or
right?
RV.
I love the variety of climates that Oregon has.
Yeah.
I think that's really special. It's not till I go to other states where I'm like, oh, you just have like one thing going
One
on.
type
like,
of yeah.
like we have like Eastern Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
high altitude, high desert.
Yeah. That's where I was
And-
born, the high desert.
Really?
In Lakeview, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then you go down. Maybe it's farther than Lakeview, but like I actually haven't been out there yet. But it's the southeast. There's like salt flats
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah.
The Alvord.
That's so cool. I haven't checked it out yet.
Steens Mountains.
Yeah, I want to go out there. We have Crater Lake, and then on the coast you have this rainforest, which is awesome,
Yeah.
and mushroom hunting, and then you have the valleys and southern Oregon with a totally different variety of trees down there compared to the north. So yeah, that's I feel really blessed to live here, and I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Kind of because of that.
It is cool, and I want to say I've been saying this since I was like 18, because one of my first jobs, I can't remember if I said this on the show, was I used to film horse races for the Oregon Racing Commission.
Oh, cool.
Like it was like a contracted thing with this company, but so I had to go to like Tillamook, Burns, Prineville, Grants Pass, and to do all these racing circuits. But that's what I thought back then. I'm just like, yeah, we have desert, we got beach, we got just all these climates.
Yeah, coastline. Yeah, also.
So it's just, and a city, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of everything. What's your least favorite thing about the Northwest?
I think that there's a pretty decent level of complacency, and disconnection from each other because we're so resource abundant in a lot of ways. I feel like there's just a lot of disconnection between how people relate. Maybe that's not it. What's my least thing? I mean, the rain.
Yeah.
The rain.
There's a lot of that.
You want like a less intelligent answer, just like it's wet.
No, yeah.
You know?
I get it. Yeah.
I don't like it.
9 months of rain every year.
But I kind of freaked out last month. I was not ready for the rain.
Yeah.
It had been hot, and then all of a sudden,
It hasn't rained much.
It's not supposed to do that in September. It does that in October. I like my cycles. That's what I like the least about Oregon, is that it's bipolar. Yeah. And I just think the weather should do things a certain way, and it doesn't, and I don't really like that.
Yeah.
No, I get it. All right. My goofy question. I'm going to ask both of you this. I ask everybody this in my life. Are you crunchy or smooth peanut butter? Do you even like peanut butter?
Yeah, I do. I mean, my kids do, and I don't eat peanut butter anymore, but I taste it.
Yeah.
Super over peanut butter. Definitely smooth. I don't like crunchy things.
Okay. In general, yeah.
In general, I'm not crunchy.
All right. Tell me.
Smooth. Yeah, for sure.
I'm team crunchy. So.
Really?
I bake, and so when I do bake with peanut butter, it's always smooth.
Okay.
It's just, you work with it easier.
It's
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I'm in the minority. This is why I'm asking people this. So I'm trying to get more crunchy.
My daughter, my oldest daughter, is the only one that likes crunchy, and the rest of us are like, she's always mad at us because we're like, no, we're getting smooth. You're outvoted. Every once in a while I'll get her crunchy, and everyone in the house complains. But
people even complain when I call it that. They're like, it's not smooth, it's creamy or something. I'm just like, whatever. Like I don't care.
it's both.
This is my battle I've been waging about peanut butter, but
yeah, it's like a personality test, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Covered a lot of areas.
We did cover a lot.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to have you back, and maybe we can do another farming episode or something. And
sure.
Get some.
I want to hear about the butchering process.
Yeah.
But not like you're doing for but just like a kind of a streamlined version of that. I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah. You could bring an animal and just do it right here. No.
My gosh. I would.
Well, cool. Yeah. Thanks for coming in. And yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Super fun.